Hello, Royals fans, and welcome to another edition of the Royals Rundown podcast, brought to you by our friends at Royals Review. Don't worry, Jacob's here. I just told him that I am hijacking the podcast for a few minutes because things are rough out there with ice and honestly, there's ice just everywhere you go, all kinds of ice, and it's all bad. Don't like it. Went down the stairs to take Callie out this morning, almost slipped and cracked my skull open at least 3 times. And it's bad out there, and I do mean the organization too. So it's rough out there. We know it's rough out there. We don't want to make this podcast a place where I talked about this, I think, on a recent podcast where I want this to be a place of escape. And Jacob is kind enough to kind of let me decide some of these kinds of things. So I want this to be a place of escape, but it can't be a place of ignorance or pretending nothing is happening either. Obviously, things are pretty bad with the weather and with the government. So if you can, we're going to put a link in the show notes to donate to help on the ground in Minneapolis right now. I know it's anathema to many of you, but my love goes out to my fellow Twins fans out there, or I'm not a Twins fan, but 2 Twins fans. Okay, my love goes out to them. We're both sending all of the positive vibes we have. There's lots of scary stuff, but there's also lots of hope. I don't know if y'all saw some of the photos from the protests when they shut down almost the entire city of Minneapolis on Friday in protest of what's going on. The streets were flooded in a way that I would associate with the Super Bowl parade. That's what I'm seeing out there. So, there's hope. Don't lose hope. If you can't donate, that's fine. There's also a website, 5calls.org, where you can get a phone number and a script, or you can get all the phone numbers for all your representatives and scripts for any issue you can think of. You can call them. This is what I did. I called them last night, off hours, when they weren't there, and I left a voicemail. Phone calls are hard. I get it. Call. You've got a script. Leave them a voicemail. Just do what you can. And even if you can't do either of those things, try to find something positive to do in your life. Maybe you want to clean up a little mess in your garage, so a pile of boxes or something. Just find something small so you can take a little bit of power back and take some of this feelings of helplessness away. And with that all said, I think we're ready to go into the regular show now. And we're probably not going to bring this up again in the show because, like I said, I want this to be a place of escape, but it can't be a place of ignorance. So I want you to know I'm with you. I hear you. I see you. We're all doing the best we can. And now to the baseball.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Jeremy. But yeah, we do have a lot to talk about on the Kansas City Royals front. So not a moment to spare here. Thank you for holding it down last week. I was in a weird spot. I wasn't in a good spot to podcast on Thursday. So Jeremy was very gracious to hold it down the way that they can. And
20 minutes of ranting about economics in baseball. That's what everyone wants to hear, right?
So here's the thing, because you peek behind the curtain. I love peeks behind the curtain here.
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
The
those
podcast.
Are fun.
They are
better than peeks up the skirt.
No, none of those here. I'm sitting down. I am fully clothed. I have pants on. Okay.
But I have a skirt on, but my legs are crossed, so it's fine.
There you go. I will continue. I've been, kicking the positional rankings down the road every now and then, especially when we have a lot to talk about. And Jeremy said, "Hey, like that's just off-season content for you. You never know when you're actually going to have a lot to talk about." And the fact of the matter is, there was some stuff to talk about with that trade and with that move, and kind of it being a microcosm of overall baseball right now. And I saw the comments on Spotify. I appreciate everyone commenting on there and on Royals Review. It sparked some good discussion about an aspect of baseball that we do talk about a lot, but is not at the forefront of every baseball fan's mind, if that makes sense. Things that are at the forefront of fans' minds, things like the MLB Top 100 right now list came out. MLB Pipeline's Top 100 prospect list came out. We're going to talk about the Royals' appearances on both of those here in a little bit. Plus, we're going to talk about our favorite newsletter writer David Lesky reminding us of the penchants and the probability for a late move from these Kansas City Royals. Plus, later on in the podcast, we will get to our outfield rankings. But as always, the podcast is brought to you by RoyalsReview.com. I highly suggest you go and find this podcast episode on Royals Review. Comment below, leave your thoughts. Even if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Go find a conversation in the rumblings every single day. There's always one or two, right? Because I will, whenever I do the rumblings, my rumblings come out Wednesday morning. I'm curious about, okay, I put in a lot of different stuff here. What sparked a conversation and what didn't? And I'll see the overall numbers. It's like 133. It's like, okay, there has to be so many comments on this. And it's like 6 different threads. It's like 130 comments and 6 different threads. It's a lot of conversation going on, man. So it's worth it.
The people at Royals Review have always, at least in the as long as I've been a member of Royals Review, which is since 2015. I started writing in 2016, but I was a reader in 2015. They've always treated the rumblings like an old-fashioned message board where you just go on there and you post your thoughts and people talk back to you. And now they have the feed and you can use the feed that way, but the rumblings haven't gone anywhere either. And I'm used to the rumblings and I'm old, so I still prefer the rumblings when I get in the mood to do that. But yeah, there is community here. It's not just us preaching at you, though I do that from time to time.
From time to time, we both do. We both do. So, all right, I do want to go ahead and roll right into it. And I don't think there's a better spot to start off than with MLB's top 100 players right now. I think this is an interesting way to frame it because whenever you look at top 100 players, however you frame it, you're going to get a different 100 players, if that makes sense. I'm sure that there are some guys who are on the top 100 prospects list right now who are good enough to be in the top 100 players overall in baseball. But right now, big league impact, these are the guys that are making the biggest impact. And I don't think it surprises anyone that the top Royals representative is Bobby Witt Jr. at number 3, only trailing behind Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge. This is the same exact rank that Bobby was at in 2025. We know all the accolades from the 25-year-old. It was just another super productive season. And heading into 2026, Bobby Witt Jr. is absolutely a front runner for AL MVP. Jeremy, do you think that this was a slight at all for Bobby?
Shohei Ohtani is one of one in the entirety of baseball history. There has never been a player who could pitch and hit like Shohei Ohtani does at the same time. There have been better, I've said this before, there have been better pitchers, there have been better hitters. There has never been anyone who could do both simultaneously. Remembering, of course, that Babe Ruth, who was known for pitching and hitting, didn't do them both at the same time. He pitched and was an okay hitter, and then he quit pitching and became a fantastic hitter. That was his career arc. Ohtani does them both simultaneously. He is one of one. There is no better way to describe that. And Aaron Judge has been the enemy of baseballs for the last 2 seasons. He's just video game numbers out there in right field for the Yankees. And that could stop at any time, but it hasn't yet. He's entering the decline phase of his career already. He's in his 30s. I think he's 33, 34 entering this season. I might be wrong.
I don't think he's quite that old, but I could be wrong.
Bobby's got some time. Bobby he'll be number 1 on this list before he's done.
That's true. That's true.
Let Shohei and Aaron Judge enjoy this while they can. They won't be there forever. Bobby won't be there forever, but he'll get to 1 before we're done. And he'll get an MVP or 2.
Yes, he will. Yes, he absolutely should.
6. I don't know.
And I was wrong. I apologize. Aaron Judge is 33 right now. He turns 34 in late April. So he is entering his age 34 season.
He's older than you think he is.
Yeah. It's just that it's easy to dislike Aaron Judge because he's a New York Yankee, but holy smokes. He has some really good longevity.
Is just undeniable.
It is. It really is. So you had to go a little bit further down to see the next Royals representative, but the Royals had 4 overall representatives, including newcomer third baseman Michael Garcia, who was not ranked on this list in 2025, coming in at 65th overall. I think this is just indicative of a breakout season from the Venezuelan. He got rewarded with that contract extension, and I don't think that there's any concern. Like, there's not a glaring concern for regression when it comes to Michael Garcia. This feels like the right spot for a player who is coming off of his first really great MLB season. And now where do you go from here, Michael? Do you go up? Do you go down? Overall, you hold your destiny in your own hands. Do you have anything to add on Michael, Jeremy?
No, I think 65 is a reasonable place for him. I think if he maintains, even if all he does is maintain in 26, I think he'll go up, because it was just one season. Seven's like, well, we don't want to rank him too high, because what if it was a fluke? And then we could be like, well, it was good enough to be 65, but we'll take him back off the list. If he maintains, I think he'll go up. If he continues to break out, which I do think is possible, I'm not positive that this is that we've seen the best that Michael Garcia can offer. I think he'll move up the list.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what can happen with the I believe he's also 25.
Yes, that he is. And if you don't think that the previous year's standing can have an effect on where you are in 2026, I think the next Royals representative is a good indicator of that, who was ranked at 43rd in the 2025 list, now dropping all the way down to 89th, but still in it despite a mostly lost season, starting pitcher Cole Reagans. And, Royals fans, I think, they agree. The Southpaw has a lot of talent, and if he's healthy, he is going to be the opening day starter. It's pretty cut and dry in my mind. But it is also hard to look at 2025 as a season where you would say Cole Reagans was a top 100 player in all of baseball. You know what I mean, Jeremy?
Yeah. The thing is, he had a season that was roughed up by injury, but he also had a season where when he came back, he looked completely unhittable. He looked the best he'd ever looked. So when you look ahead to 26, you're like, boy, that guy's still an ace. I don't know, man. He might be, if he can be healthy, he's going to be higher than 89. He'll be back into the 40s at least. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go higher. I mean, this is a guy who competed for the Cy Young Award the one year he's been fully healthy.
Yep, that is true. That is true. And we did have one other newcomer for the Royals. I think Witt and Garcia and Reagans, I was kind of expecting them to slot into this list. Vinny Pasquantino, I was not banking on appearing on this list, but he came in at 93rd after not being ranked in 2025. This is it was a career season from Vinny. He produced in one way in 24. He kind of produced in a different way in 25. And this is another reminder that even though Vinny is not one of the top guys when it comes to wins above replacement or swiping bags or outs above average, Vinny Pasquantino is a likable guy. He gets it done with the stick. And what is he going to do in 2026? Jeremy, do you have any thoughts on Vinny?
Can you imagine where Vinny would be if he hadn't had that ice cold month of April?
Yeah, man.
That's what I'm hoping we're seeing in 26, is we're seeing a full season of Vinny. I mean, the OPS plus was 120 with an ice cold month of April. He gets that up to 130, 140. His rookie season, he was 135 for that short span in 22, where he was worth 1.4 WAR in 72 games. That Vinny back, get a 4 WAR Winnie, basically.
Yep.
4 WAR Vinny, not Winnie.
Winnie. Well, hold on, maybe.
Ooh, baby. It's gonna be so good. He was worth 2.5 offensive WAR last year.
Yeah, that he was.
Per Fangraphs. So I got to see if I can find their OR leaderboard here, because that I bet that's near. No, never mind. Not really near the top, but it's not low.
Yeah, this is all. I don't know, that we talk about advanced metrics a lot on the podcast and things like that. Vinny Pasquantino, if you look at the back of the baseball card numbers, he's a very good first baseman. You know, he's a guy that if I was a young Royals fan, I would absolutely be wanting a Vinny Pasquantino jersey. This is a guy that I would absolutely be wanting to see in the opening day lineup for 5+ years to come. You know, Vinny is such a likable guy. I one that he's active period on social media, but I do love when he talks on social media. He is a very educated speaker when it comes to baseball. I mean, goodness gracious, folks don't give baseball players enough credit for how smart they are. You have freaking Brent Rooker and Mike Trout talking about weather models ahead of this winter storm on social media. These guys know what they're talking about. All right. And Vinny is no different. You know, Old Dominion's just down the road for me here. It's no slouch of a school. So he had to have some smarts to go there. But yeah, I really love Vinny, and I love to see a rise from him.
I'm a firm believer that you can tell a lot about a guy's intelligence from their interviews, and the way Vinny gives an interview and his willingness to give an interview. You can't always, because some people have difficulty with public speaking, but when they don't have difficulty with public speaking, which Vinny clearly doesn't, their personality and their intellect can shine, and his does. Saw he was on a podcast, a Fangraphs podcast.
Effectively Wild with Meg Rowley.
Did you mention that already?
No.
I haven't listened to it yet, but I saw he was on it, and I'm really looking forward to listening to that later.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to say there's not a lot of Royals where I'm like, oh, I want to listen to that.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most highly sought-after products on the market. It visibly shrinks under-eye bags and smooths out crow's feet in minutes, and the effects last up to 10 hours. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. In as little as 10 minutes, Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results. The best news, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95. Plus, get free shipping. Don't wait. Order Plexiderm today. Visit plexiderm.com/special. That's plexiderm.com/special. Paid for by Sheer Science.
Bobby Witt Jr. Love him as a player. I don't need to listen to him on a podcast. I've tried. He doesn't do much for me. Vinny does. I'm excited to listen to what Vinny has to say.
Yeah, very, very true. And, you know, Effectively Wild is already one of the best baseball podcasts out there. And Vinny has proven but not just his podcasting chops, but his broadcast chops so many times in the past calendar year alone. So the
Royals got to lock him up to a broadcasting deal for whenever he retires.
Yeah, man.
Can you imagine?
That would be a good one. That would be a really, really good one. In the time that I've been watching, you know, Royals baseball, I'm talking game in, game out, there has not really been a former Royals player that I can sink my teeth into and say, like, this is a guy I really like to listen to. I thought, like, Jeremy Guthrie has his moments for me, but, like, yeah, he just doesn't do it for me overall.
He definitely sophomore slumped, because I thought he was pretty good in 24, but in 25, I did not care for him.
Yeah. But all that to say, I think Vinny would be an exception to that rule for the Royals.
I do wonder if it gets harder the further away you get from the sport, because Tony Romo, the first 2 or 3 years after he retired, I thought was really good at broadcasting football, and I can't stand him anymore. And I don't think it's just overexposure, because he broadcasts almost every Chiefs game. I do think that he sounds less good at his job now. I don't know.
Yeah, I very much agree. That's a really good comparison, because Tony Romo was calling out plays before they happened in his first year. It was a revelation, and now it's really waned. Another one that I think of is Greg Olson. When it comes to that, Greg Olson was very much on the ball, and, you know, a couple of years removed from the game, so it's a little bit different. But I do want to say that some broadcasters out there prove to me that the work you put in ahead of calling a game can, even if you didn't don the pads in a couple of decades, that those broadcasters could really bring it and they really know their stuff, but it all comes down to research ahead of time.
Which
So
is not easy to do. Let me
it's
tell you.
not.
Jacob will tell you, he probably won't tell you, but I'll tell you for Jacob that he puts in way more effort on these positional rankings lists than I do. And I think you all could tell. Like, I have some insights, but Jacob's really bringing the meat of this.
Nah, I wouldn't go quite that far, especially with this outfield ranking. Holy smokes, there's not a lot of meat on this bone, Jeremy. I will tell you that much. But hey, before we get there, I do want to talk about the top 100 prospects.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the two guys that the Royals did have, and I'm going to bang the table for a guy who should have been there. I don't think it should surprise any Royals fans out there that the top ranked Royals prospect right now is Carter Jensen. Absolutely rocketing up these rankings, coming in at 8 in the game. I'm sure he's going to lose his prospect status here before
too long. To be clear,
long.
these are the MLB pipeline top 100 because everybody's got a top 100 list.
Yes, thank you. I mean, shoot, my top 15 Dynasty Royals prospects just came out this week. I'll talk about that another time.
All right.
But yeah, Jensen, he came on the scene absolutely going scorched earth at the plate. It was only 69 plate appearances, but very nice. I think that he's a rookie of the year favorite right now in the AL, and it really all depends on how he splits duties with Salvador Perez behind the plate. But second guy dropping down just a smidge after an injury hampered 2025, Blake Mitchell. And I don't know if I was necessarily surprised he was still here. Well, no, I guess I was.
He's not on the Baseball America list.
He was. I think Baseball America is. Their list is very like 1 year or like 1 or 2 year window, I would say.
For sure.
MLB I'm not saying this is a bad thing from Pipeline.
No, everybody has a different way of putting together their lists, which is what makes it interesting to have everybody's lists.
Right. And I will say Pipeline did talk about Mitchell's, like they said, hey, he had the injury. It really slowed him down. But the Arizona Fall League, though.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the Arizona Fall League slash line was not super impressive, but like this was a moment where people were pointing to the exit velocities and immeasurables behind the plate and things like that. Like I'm going through a season right now where I don't know if hitting the ball hard is as successful as it once was 3 years ago. And I think that baseball needs to kind of adjust to that. So that has me a little bit bearish on Mitchell, if that makes sense.
No, we all expected, and we talked about this when we did our catcher rankings, that the hamate bone injury was going to cost him power for all of 25. The question is, will it come back in 26? If it does, he'll race back up the prospect list. Everything will be fine. If it doesn't, well, oops.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a pretty succinct way to put it. Now, the guy who, before we started recording the podcast, we were double checking on who was ranking where and things like that. I definitely told Jeremy about 3 or 4 times, like, are you sure he wasn't on the top 100 prospect list? Are you sure he wasn't there? Is a Royals pitcher by the name of Kendry Chorio. Now, probably what I was getting confused with is he was on Baseball America's top 100 list, coming in at 82. This is the guy that I wanted to bang the table with a little bit. Because did you see his write-up on Baseball America, Jeremy?
I saw it. I don't remember it. There's been a little bit going on, Jacob.
Yeah, there's been a little going on. You're right. I want to take this concluding line from the write-up regarding Chorio. Quote, if he does it, which is him doing what he did in 25, if he does it again, he will have a case as the sport's best pitching prospect. This guy has massive helium right now in the Royals system. And, he went from, you don't see it very often, where in the span of 1 year, a guy not only goes from the Dominican Summer League to the Arizona Complex League, but then goes from the Complex League to low A. That is very, very rare.
It almost never happens that a guy gets promoted from the Complex League, from the DSL basically, in 1 year to full season ball. It almost never happens.
Almost never. And he was not phased when he got to low A. Was were the strikeout numbers and the ERA, were they as good? No. But he was doing this as a 17-year-old in low A. At that point, you were getting 2025 draftees, 2025 collegiate draftees playing in the Carolina. Okay, he was so good.
One of the things I think is the most important thing to highlight when you're talking about prospects is age relative to the competition.
Yeah.
When you're 17 in low A, you are extremely young compared to your competition.
I think it's about 4 or 5 years younger.
About that. It's at least 3. And if you keep up with them when you're 3 years younger than them, 4 or 5 years younger than them, your numbers are going to be so much better in a year or two.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, that's what you see, like, oh man, a 21-year-old in MLB, that's crazy. Well, yeah. And when you see the 21-year-old succeed in baseball, you're like, oh, that guy's going to be good for a very long time.
Exactly.
There was one of the reasons I thought Michael Garcia still had something to him, but even before the 25 season, was because he was so young and he'd held his own for an extended period of time at 22 years old. In 23, he didn't play the full season, but he played a good chunk of the season, and he didn't look amazing. But at 22 years old in the MLB, average age compared to competition, they're like 8 years younger than everybody up there.
Yeah.
That you've got room to get better. So yeah, it was a little scary when he slumped at age, 23 and 24, but there were reasons why I thought the Royals were smart to not just move on from him heading into 25.
Yeah, and it has played very well for them.
MJ Melendez was the other direction.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? So all that to say, Chourio is a guy who he's on so many prospect radars right now after not really being a part of the 2025 international free agent class. That class just continues to look better and better for the Kansas City Royals. And this is a guy who, if everything clicks, I kid you not, this could be a number 2 starter for the Royals rotation in 3 or 4 years. If everything clicks, he is still a long ways away. But
if he keeps going like this, we could see him debut next year.
Yeah, if he keeps this like this, because like we said, this is not unprecedented, but like 98th percentile just promotion speed.
The precedents are precedents you want. You want so bad.
Exactly. So I am banging the table for Kendrick Chourio. There's a good amount of film out there on him. Thankfully, Baseball America has done a pretty good job of getting some film on him. You can watch him in the low A postseason with the Fireflies. So I highly suggest you go check it out. He's got some good stuff. He's a very fun guy to watch. And I think that we're going to hear a lot about him in 2026, even if it's just me yelling at the wall about Kendrick Chourio.
Yeah, I suspect he'll make the top 100 on Pipeline before the season's over. Another guy I think will make the Pipeline top 100 before the season's over, who just missed the Baseball America top 100. We haven't got the Fangraphs one yet. We'll have to talk about that whenever we get it. David Shields just missed the Baseball America top 100. He's down in A-ball with Chourio. I think he's 18, 19, also very young. So you know me, I don't like to talk about these guys till they hit AA, but these two are so impressive in A-ball that I have to acknowledge that I'm a little excited for them already.
Yeah, Shields is he's heading into his age 19 season. He did receive a top 150 vote, I believe, for the Royals. They put out their list of like, hey, here are all the guys from each system that got a top 150 vote for Baseball America. It was Jensen, Chourio, Shields, Josh Hammond, 2025 draftee, and then Blake Mitchell down at the bottom. Yeah, Shields is the baseball draft pipeline is going to look very different in a couple of years. It is going to look extremely different depending on how the CBA goes. And David Shields might be one of like the last high ceiling prep player or prep pitching prospects that the Royals have access to. He did really, really good in his first season. I think I heard somewhere that he was also dealing with a hamstring injury in 25, but was still doing what he did in low A. So that makes me even a little bit more bullish about him. He comes in for Baseball America. He comes in as the 11th best left-handed pitching prospect entering
Shields is a
2026.
lefty? I missed that.
He's a southpaw.
That changes things too.
Yeah, it does, and he's going to be another very interesting guy to watch. I don't know how they're going to play this promotion, not game, but promotion kind of cup game, I guess, with him and Churio.
I think I wouldn't be surprised if Shields starts in high A and Churio starts in low A, but Churio's quick to get promoted to high A.
Yeah.
And if they continue to do this year what they did last year, I also wouldn't be surprised if they were in double A by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's a good point. And if you haven't heard of,
they won't push them. If they're not just completely dominating like they did last year, then okay, just have a year in high A. That's fine. But it could happen where they get to double A by the end of this year.
It could. Shields already had 18 starts in low A, so he's pretty seasoned there. Had 71 and 2/3 innings. Struck out 28.3% of the opposition at that level. Only walked 5.2.
That's pretty good, Jacob. Is that pretty good?
That's pretty damn good, I will say, Jeremy. So keep an eye on David Shields and Kendry Churio in the Royals prospect pipeline. Let's see here, Jeremy. What was the other thing that we needed
Carlos
to talk
Beltrán?
about before we got the outfielder? Yeah, Jeremy, hold on. I have to get a prop. Can you talk about the former Royals outfielder for a moment?
Sure. So, funny story, my Royals fandom kind of coincided with Carlos Beltrán entering the scene. I really started following baseball in 1998, which was Carlos Beltrán's Rookie of the Year season. Boy, he was good, and he could just glide up there, and he had the power. I'll never forget, I think it was 2003, when he got shifted to left field so that Johnny Damon could play center because for whatever reason, Beltrán was hitting better in left and Damon was hitting better in center, even though that defensive alignment makes zero sense. But I remember that happening. I remember Carlos Beltrán hitting the walk-off home run on opening day 2004, and the Royals were never going to lose again. I remember when they were going to trade him, when they traded him for John Buck and Mark Tien and Blake Wood, I think it was. I was excited for Mark Tien and John Buck, and I'm still disappointed that they didn't turn out any better. But I also remember, and I didn't know this at the time, but one of the first stories I ever saw on Royals Review, so this is a story I always bring up when I bring up Carlos Beltrán, is that Allard Baird had gotten Beltrán to agree to an extension in 2004. He was gonna sign a 3-year extension way under market rate. I think it was like $24 million, something like that. And Allard Baird took it to David Glass, and David Glass said, "Get him to knock $1 million off, and I'll sign it. We'll do it." And Beltrán was a little offended that he'd already agreed to this deal, that he'd already agreed to this really good deal for the Royals, and they tried to stiff him over $1 million, and that was the end of Beltrán's time in Kansas City. David Glass is the reason Carlos Beltrán is not going into the Hall of Fame as a Kansas City Royal, is what I'm trying to tell you right now.
Yeah, primarily so. This book, Jeremy, Evan Drellick. But yes, so to his credit, 4th year on the ballot, he got 84.2% of the votes.
Would have been a first ballot.
He rose year after year.
The whole cheating scandal in Houston, whatever.
"Quote unquote, the Godfather." You said it, Jeremy. I was going to keep it in. I was going to keep it reined in. The Godfather of the whole program.
I don't care.
The Godfather of the whole program.
I don't care.
He boo Astros players to this day.
I don't.
For something that Carlos Beltrán was doing, was making sure that they did, was getting onto staffers for them not setting up the equipment properly. God,
I don't care.
I know you don't care. I am sure. Okay, if you want to frame it like this, if he simply hadn't played in 2017, Carlos Beltrán would have had my Hall of Fame vote. He absolutely would have. He had a Hall of Fame career before 2017. He absolutely did. He had a career that so few outfielders have ever had, especially wearing a Kansas City Royals uniform, all starting in a Kansas City Royals uniform. Probably would have gone down as one of the best, scouted and developed stories in franchise history. I cannot get over this. I simply cannot look past the whole Houston Astros cheating scandal. It is, if people are going to hold this over Jose Altuve, like, oh man, I don't know if he has a Hall of Fame career because of this. I'm sorry. There were people who didn't participate. There were people who participated, and there were people who made it happen. And Carlos Beltrán was a person who made it happen. I cannot stand it. I absolutely cannot. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's where I'm at. I know. I know.
Cheating
All in
happens
all,
every day. I just don't care.
Listen.
If you're not
Good
cheating, are you really trying, Jacob?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
You are. There's a difference between trying to find competitive advantages and cheating. There is a fine line between the two, I will say. So, all right. But congratulations to him. I'm not the end. I'm not the freaking gatekeeper for Cooperstown. That's not where I am here. At the end of the day, he's in the Hall of Fame. Congratulations to him. Congratulations to Andrew Jones, who had his own asterisks. Asterisk I don't know how to say that.
Well, okay, so just to clarify it for anyone who doesn't know, Andrew Jones really struggled early on. He holds the record currently for the guy with the lowest initial ballot total to eventually get voted in. But I think a big part of that is that people began to appreciate just how good his defense was. Advanced analytics became more prevalent, and that his offense was better than he was ever given credit for because of the guys he played with. He wasn't Chipper Jones, but he was Andrew Jones.
That's true.
And then the asterisk that I give him now is realizing that he's participated in some off the field bad things that I don't really feel like discussing right now. You're welcome to Google those for yourself.
Yep, precisely. And these are plug-in Royals review again. When we initially did our staff ballots, these are both things that I took into account when I wanted to vote for who and why. So I highly suggest you go and check that out. That's a good spot to voice your opinion on the Hall of Fame, because there are guys who will be on the ballot next year who probably should have been voted in this year, but we got to wait a year to find out what happened.
Hey everyone, it's Jacob here. So after we recorded on Sunday, had a little bit of a schedule change. So if you're hearing this is the end of Monday's episode. We do appreciate you listening. Coming up on, it would be Friday morning, you will be getting our outfield rankings and a little bit more from us. And of course, your normal Royals review. So thank you very much for listening. Again, appreciate y'all's support as always. Please tune in. We are just around the corner from the baseball season.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.